So I'm Pete Galloway, the owner of the Printmaker's Inn. Today we're in the Hills Galloway house, which is really cool because it is the oldest building in Savannah. Now it's from 1693. What's cool about this house is we moved it from Connecticut. So originally not from Savannah because it predates Savannah by 40 years. We had this vacant lot here next to our original Printmaker's Inn, which is a 1884 Victorian house. Always been in Savannah, but we wanted to expand the business. We had this vacant lot, so we decided we wanted to move an old building because we love historic architecture and old buildings, and thought, for guests to come, it's more interesting than a new construction. So we found this house in East Hartford, Connecticut in 2016. It's taken us, 6 years or so to get it done, and we dismantled it and reassembled it. So to move a house, typically you do it, a couple miles, you can pick it up and move it, but since it was a 900-mile move, you have to dismantle it piece by piece. So this house was dismantled, we cataloged everything, including the fireplace, the timber frame in this room that you can see. Every room had a specific letter, so this was the A room, then we had a B, C room, etc. So we labeled each timber. We labeled each brick in the firebox, so all the brick and stone is original. So pretty much everything you see is original, which is what's so neat about this house. So we're gonna go throughout the house and show you the rooms, but the room we're in right now is the hall. That's the original kitchen. This is where they would have cooked bread. There's original bake oven in here as well, so they would have had a crane to heat up soup, make other sorts of food, but all the woodwork, the raised panel walls, which you see in here, the flooring, the hardware is all original to 1693 to 1742. So it's the most intact 18th century or earlier house in Savannah, which makes it really cool, even though it's not from here. So we're gonna show you the rest of the house, and what's neat is there's 4 guest suites in this house. Next door we have 4 guest suites as well, so there's 8 total rooms at the Printmaker's Inn. And eventually we wanna do events here, so maybe small weddings, corporate events. But this whole first floor, which includes the parlor, which is the fanciest room in the house, that's where you would entertain guests, and then the hall, which was the original kitchen, and then the back room, which is the 1740s kitchen. All this first floor will be event space. But what's neat about the house, the original builder and his grandson, they were prominent members of Hartford, Connecticut. Captain David Hills, who did the big expansion of the house. So the house now, as you see, is mainly 1740s. And he fought in the French and Indian War, which is really neat. And then his 2 sons fought in the Revolutionary War. So there's tons of history, early American history in this house. And we found a lot of really cool things during dismantling. We'll show you one of them, but we found a 7-foot-long graffiti board that was an old floorboard that they put inside the wall. And we found that during dismantling. So what's neat about that is it was basically covered up for over 200 years inside of a wall. We were dismantling the house, we took down the lath and plaster, and we found this 7-foot-long board that has 3 battle scenes on it. We think Captain David Hills maybe drew it, talking about, depicting his experience in the French and Indian War, or it could have been one of his 2 sons about the Revolutionary War. So that is probably the neatest thing we found during dismantling. We also found 18th century Bible that was ripped in half. We found several different children's shoes from different eras, so 1700s, 1800s. We even found like a 1950s Keds shoe. So they used to put shoes in the walls. That was kind of a tradition that, I believe it was for good luck. That's what we've read. There's also a lot of West African traditions where they would put things in different parts of the house, and we know they had 3 slaves in the 1780s, so it's possible that the enslaved workers did that. We're not sure. And what's neat is upstairs there's 2 suites, and they're the original bed chambers for the house. So you have the hall bed chamber, which is called the Georgian suite now, and then the parlor chamber, which is the Captain Hills suite after Captain David Hills. And those are 2 guest suites that you can stay in. One has the original paint throughout the whole room, which is really neat, from the 1740s to 1760s, which is super rare. So a lot of the old houses have been painted over, 20 times. So it's hard to get to the original layer of paint, but we basically scraped all the woodwork down to the original paint or to bare wood, and that room had the original paint. So super neat feature with that suite. Upstairs in the hall chamber, another of the original bed chambers, we left the timber exposed, so you get to see all the 1740s framing up there. And that's where we found the graffiti board, so that's really neat. And then the attic is going to be a guest, common area lounge, and that has the original 1740s roof system, which is really neat. And you can see all the joinery. So this is a timber frame building, so everything is mortise and tenon and then pinned together. So there's no metal fasteners. So they would have had, you have a tenon that's right here and then a mortise and it slots in and then you drive a peg through it. So you can see that throughout the whole attic, which is really neat. So that's left intact. And then there's 2 rooms in the back of the house that are from a different building from a 1790s house in Massachusetts. So it's a new construction kind of addition in the back, but all those 2 guest suites have woodwork from a 1790s house. So it's really neat. You walk in there and it feels like it's just an extension kind of addition to the building in the 1790s. So those are 2 really cool rooms. I think what's so neat about this building and then just the whole property and what separates us from other inns in town or other properties is it's super historically accurate, I guess is historically accurate is the best way I'd describe it. Most of the buildings in Savannah have been altered so much throughout time, which is just what happens in a town that's been lived in for so long. And in East Hartford, this area where this house was, it fell into disrepair really quickly. The freeway went straight through it. So most of the buildings in East Hartford were never altered. So this gives you a firsthand, a great view into 18th century or earlier architecture history. A lot of the older buildings in Savannah were burned down in the 1790s. There was a big fire, so we lost a lot of early architecture then and houses. And then they were altered so much, so you go into a 1790s house in Savannah and it looks like it's got wide plank floors and it may have a couple original doors, but besides that, it's pretty new looking. So, and the Victorian next door is very much intact. So you basically can see 300 years of historic, evolution, and it's totally original and representing of that period. So if you like history, you like architecture, you really can't beat what we have, which is really neat. So obviously we're super nerdy with architecture and history, so I could talk about, each room has really cool different HL hinges, which is the hardware on the doors. Each room has distinct woodwork that's different than other rooms. So they're all so unique that it makes them all a cool experience. So I would say I couldn't pick a favorite room, but people love this room, the hall, because of the big exposed beams. People love exposed woodwork. So I think this also has one of the bigger fireplaces. So I would say most people like this room the best. And what's also neat is we have all the antiques, art, it's all period to a given time of 1700s to early 1800s. So I think that also makes the rooms feel more authentic. Like if you go to a lot of inns in town, they have fake art or, the furniture isn't old. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, this doesn't really give you the vibe that I think most people are looking for when they're trying to find an old inn to stay in. So we're storing, and getting this house rebuilt was difficult just because you have to deal with getting stuff approved by the city. You have to find the craftsmen to do it, because most people nowadays, if they do historic preservation, it's not to the level that we were doing it. I mean, we were going back to everything lath and plastering with the original lath, which is from the 1740s or earlier. So a lot of people don't do that. If they replaster, they do a metal lath and they plaster over that, or they use a board and skim coat over it. So it's trying to find the craftsman. Luckily, we found an English guy here who's trained in traditional plastering, so he helped us out. And then got a carpentry crew that he knew in Baltimore that came down, and one guy lived in a tent on site for 6 months. So I think finding the people to do the work the right way. There was actually a really awesome mason in Savannah who did the chimney, he was pretty much the only local guy. So I think it's just finding people. There's a lot of restoration people, but they're on the bigger scale. So we had to find people who would want to do a smaller, it's still a big project, but small in comparison. So I would say just trying to find the people to help was definitely the hardest. There's so many inns, there's so many, Airbnbs, hotels now, so that's what we're trying to figure out, how people can find out about us. Because if you like history and architecture, it's kind of like, this is the place to stay, in my opinion. So, and since we only have 8 rooms, it's not like we have 30 or 50. It should not be hard to get 8 rooms full all year. So that'd be great. And then I think eventually doing small weddings and stuff would be really cool. So we definitely want to do events. And then we would love to do, period movies or period TV show or something. I think that could be really cool, just because, again, it's so historically intact and stuff. So there's a lot we can do, which is cool. We definitely, want people to go to our website. We do a lot of stuff on like Expedia and Airbnb, but it's way more beneficial to go to our website for us and then for future guests, because we do a discount if you book on our website, which is great. And then you learn more about the property and the history, and you can see more photos and stuff. So definitely check our website out for sure.